Hello, today is Wednesday, September 24th, 2025, and I'm going to do something a little different today in that rather than using the United Church of Christ Daily Devotional, I'm going to read one of the daily meditations from Richard Rohr and talk a little bit about that. The meditation is entitled Peacemaking is Not Niceness. And it begins with a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. from his letter from the Birmingham City Jail. I'm not afraid of the word tension. I have earnestly worked and preached against nonviolent tension. But there is a type of constructive nonviolent tension that is necessary for growth. And then Minister Ali Dowd, an anti-racist white activist, challenges the notion that being a peacemaker means being nice. Al writes, "We white people love to think of ourselves as nice, but too often niceness is about convenience. It's about our comfort, it's about our control. It's about our pathological desire for niceness it is our pathological desire for niceness that leads white people to look at young black people crying out in the street and say things like, they should really say hashtag all lives matter. I'm all for protesting, but do they really have to inconvenience other people? No one is going to listen to them if they're going to be so rude like that. In other words, why can't they be nice? We say we value niceness, but this kind of niceness isn't kindness or compassion or accompaniment or self-sacrifice. It's not Christ's example of emptying ourselves for the sake of the other. It's the opposite, silencing and oppressing the other for the sake of ourselves. And then Dowd reflects on the desire to reduce tension instead of learning what it might have to teach. The reason many white people have trouble thinking of nonviolent direct action as truly nonviolent is that it is disruptive by nature and that doesn't feel very nice. It's not supposed to be nice. Direct action intentionally interrupts our daily flow and rhythm in an attempt to raise tension. This tension isn't new. It isn't being created out of thin air. It has always existed for our siblings of color. For people of color and other oppressed folks, the tension caused by marginalization is ever present with real consequences. Racism is like being force-fed a poison. Direct action is what happens when people refuse to drink that poison and instead bring a bottle of it to the doorstep of those force-feeding them and demand that they gaze upon the reality of it. Direct action doesn't create new tension. It redistributes the tension that is already there and puts it back where it belongs, at the source. Many people, white people in particular, have little tolerance for tension. We've been taught to avoid tension. Our conditioning has raised us to recoil from discomfort, to think of it as an inherently bad thing, something to sidestep and evade at all costs. Instead of leaning into tension to see what we can learn from it, we often avoid it. But when we do this, when we turn away from tension, we fail to see the gift that this tension can be in revealing the truth. We miss out on the clarity it brings with it, the opportunity to move forward. Well, lots of things went through my mind as I was reading this meditation, and one is, yes, I find myself the same way. And I think that's why change is so difficult, because change involves discomfort. And we prefer to be comfortable, really. And I think things like understanding racism pushes us into an uncomfortable stance. And it's pointing it out isn't meant to make us feel guilty or anyone feel guilty, but simply to point out what it may be like for someone not like us, so that we can have empathy and compassion and understanding for the situation they may be in. It's intended to make us uncomfortable so we can understand a little bit perhaps of the uncomfortableness other people experience every single day of their life. I know I've run across some white people who say, they don't believe racism exists because they've never experienced it. Well, duh, yeah, you've never experienced it, because you've never experienced it, so that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And just because we can't understand or relate to someone else's experiences does not negate the reality of their experience and their emotions. And their expressing that should make us feel uncomfortable because it's the only way things will change. This meditation also reminded me of my first semester in seminary, in which there were many, many sleepless nights because I was forced to look at what my faith beliefs were and to reassess them and to look hard at the development of Christianity in general. And it's something that has continued throughout my life now, and I'm constantly in tension as my beliefs evolve and change, as I learn more. Yes, it would have been simpler to just not have anything, not to have my beliefs challenged, not to take a hard look at what I held as quote unquote sacred or tradition. Would have been much more comfortable just to leave that alone and continue the way I was. But that's not how growth occurs. In fact, real damage can occur if we're not constantly reassessing and reevaluating based on more information, more data, more relationships, and understanding of other people's experiences, having compassion for them. It involves tension. Change involves tension. This also made me think of something I once heard, that if we're struggling with deciding between two different paths to move forward, the path that may be intended by God or whatever, may be the one that seems the most difficult or creates the most tension. Because in reality, I think some people put up with a lot of shit in their lives because it's shit that they know, and they'd rather put up with that than face the unknown. But when in reality, facing the unknown and the struggles that come with that could free them of that, the evilness in their lives or the bad things that are going on in their lives, the bad relationships. But they're afraid to face the unknown and instead put up with things that they don't need to put up with. Anyway, those are my thoughts that I came when I was reading through this, and I hope they give you something to think about, to look at your own life, to look at your own tension in your life and see where in your life you may be feeling a little tension, and maybe probing into that a little and seeing what may need to be looked at and what may need to be addressed, and where the growth potential might be in assessing or confronting or accepting that tension, and as a source of impetus to delve deeper and explore. I mean, really, if you've ever undergone therapy, that's what a lot of therapy is helping us to gently approach those tension points in our lives that are keeping us back, and unpacking them, not getting rid of them necessarily, but unpacking them so that they're easier to carry forward. Because just leaving them hidden and packed away, they become heavy burdens that can really keep us from being the real humans we were intended to be. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Lots of rambling, I know, but I hope this gives you something to think about, and I hope to talk to you again soon.